Good evening and welcome to this new webinar from Schmidt Vocal Arts, tips for teachers preparing your students for the Schmidt Vocal Competition. I am Linda McAllister, Executive Director of Schmidt Vocal Arts. Also with us tonight are Bree Williams, our SVA Program Associate, and Chester Schmidt, the Chair of the William E. Schmidt Foundation Board. It looks like we probably don't need to launch our poll, Bree, so I'm going to go right into introducing Chester Schmidt, who's going to say a quick hello. Chester, welcome to our live stream.
Well, thank you, Linda and Bree, and hello from Nashville, Tennessee. I am obviously at home, and when I'm at home, anything can happen. Our dog can come in. My wife is currently out. Our daughter-in-law is going to spend the night with us. Not sure when she's coming. And our grandson may come in and out of here. So far, it's just me, but that can change in a heartbeat. So welcome to this webinar. And we're all going to learn something tonight, especially me, because I don't have a vocal background. So I'm very interested in hearing what Linda and Bree have to say, and welcome. Back to you, Linda.
All right, thanks, Chester. You might hear random cat meows from my house too, so we'll be prepared for all the pet entrances. So welcome. The idea for this webinar was formulated actually by Bree, probably because she's the one who has to field all the questions that we'll be covering tonight. So just so you know, tonight we're going to be moving through a number of topics. We'll have Bree will do a little bit of our program overview, telling you about what we do in addition to the Schmidt Vocal Competition. Then we'll talk about tips to give your students to prepare for either a live or virtual competition performance, including what to wear, how to introduce themselves, and more. And then we'll end with advice directly from some of our adjudicators about what they're looking for in a singer and what repertoire to choose. If you have any questions along the way, please feel free to enter them in the Q&A boxes and we'll address them as they come up. And all right, I'm going to let Bree take over now and let her tell you a little bit about our programs. Bree?
Thanks, Linda. Hi, everyone, and welcome. We are really excited to be offering you this webinar tonight. While you're probably here for competition tips, we wanted to make sure that you knew all about our programs. So, what is Schmidt Vocal Arts all about? Our flagship program is the High School Schmidt Vocal Competition. We have 16 regional competitions across the country with partner universities, plus one online cohort. At each of these regionals, there is a maximum of 30 singers. For our live events, it's a one-day competition format with 2 rounds of competition, plus a masterclass with the adjudicators and an awards ceremony. Our high school competition is open to sophomores, juniors, and seniors who are recommended by their voice teacher or choral director. They must also be a U.S. citizen or permanent resident with a social security number. So why should you have your students enter? Well, first off, they'll receive written comments from each adjudicator, which is a really unique opportunity to get feedback on their performances. They'll also get the chance to sing on stage with a live pianist, and for some of our singers, this is the first time they get to do that. We offer generous cash awards. At the regional level, they are $2,500 for first place, $2,000 for second place, and $1,500 for third place, plus finalists and encouragement awards. Last year, we presented our first ever national competition. It's back this year in partnership with Sarasota Opera and will feature a $10,000 first prize. The top 3 from each regional will advance. The top 3 from each regional also become eligible for additional scholarships, including matching awards to host universities and need-based aid for college, and a scholarship to our summer program. And then once your students graduate from high school, they can look into our undergraduate awards, which is open to vocal performance or music education students at the university level. The Schmidt Vocal Institute is our 2-week summer intensive for high school singers. It's held at Miami University of Ohio, usually the last 2 weeks of June. We choose about 30 singers from across the country, and they come to work with a rotating guest faculty, as well as a resident faculty, including the Miami University faculty members. The curriculum includes voice lessons, coachings, vocal health, diction, and more. And the program ends with 2 public performances. What's really great is that we have a partnership with Cincinnati Opera, so the singers get to see a professional opera and meet with the artistic director and young artists of the season. SVI is open to all high school singers, including rising sophomores and graduated seniors. And the tuition and fees for the program are quite reasonable. So I briefly mentioned scholarship opportunities earlier, but this is a growing part of our programs. Our need-based aid is available for eligible first, second, and third place winners of our regional competitions. Families consult with Dr. Ellen Frischberg, our SVA scholarship manager, on the ins and outs of financial aid. Currently, we're supporting about 60 singers at the university level, from $1,000 a year to about $25,000 a year, depending on need. In addition to college scholarships, we offer 5 $2,000 alumni summer study grants for singers to pursue summer opportunities. And our final program is the Schmidt Vocal Education. This is an evolving area, but currently we offer online events like this webinar and a series of online masterclasses. We also offer opportunities for alumni to showcase themselves in our alumni concert live streams. And now I'll send things back to Linda to pass along those teacher tips.
Thanks, Bree. All right, so now we're going to focus on the tips for your singers. All of these that we've compiled today are really focused towards our high school competition. Bree and I often get the question from teachers, when do I know if my singer is ready for the competition? And sometimes I think teachers may overthink this a bit, but if a singer fulfills the requirements, then why not? So the requirements are, as Bree mentioned, we allow high school sophomores, juniors, and seniors to compete. They have to be recommended by their voice teacher or choral director and be a US citizen or permanent resident with a social security number. And singers can only compete once in one regional competition per academic year. Ask yourself, does my student have the appropriate repertoire? For our high school competition, we require 3 memorized pieces. One of those 3 could be a musical theater piece. Is your singer interested in performing on stage and meeting other singers? Then they definitely should do this. And lastly, we like to think of the competition as a learning opportunity as well as a competition. That's one reason why we always have a master class in the middle of the day. We always tell teachers it's not only a place to send the singers that you might think place in the first, second, or third spots, but it's a place also for younger singers to perform and see who else is out there in their area, experience singing on a stage and meeting these other singers in their area. So if all of these or any of these are a yes, then please do send your singers our way. We'd love to have them sign up for our competition. And now moving on to preparing your singers for both in-person and online competitions. Remember, there is a slight difference in how you might prepare your students for these. I know in the last few years, we've all gotten better at technology, or at least we hope we have. And recording has gotten a lot better. So when you're sending your video submissions in, these are some things that you should really look at before you submit them. Video quality is super important. However, this doesn't mean you have to hire a recording engineer or buy expensive equipment. Nowadays, cell phones have really great sound and video quality. A lot of it has to do with how you set that camera up. So when you're setting everything up, you want to make sure that you frame the picture really well. If you have a live pianist, if you're lucky to have a pianist with you and a grand piano, you want to frame that into the picture as well. I personally like seeing the pianist in the frame as well. That might change if if the pianist is at an upright piano, but I like seeing the collaboration that's happening. Again, that's my opinion. It might be different for some other people. When you're setting it up, you always want to make sure that you have a flattering camera angle as well. Straight on is good for singing, or just a little above. I would, just like we all practice in our Zoom computer setups, the having a camera angle from below is not the most flattering that you can have. You also want to make sure that you're checking your sound levels. Make sure you do sound tests, checking the highest and loudest parts and the softest and lowest parts of your pieces. On the high parts, you want to make sure the mic doesn't distort any of your sound, because we really want to hear how those fabulous high notes are at the ends of your pieces. Also make sure you're checking your lighting. If it's a dark space, try and add lighting. We want to make sure that there's sharp focus on your face and the picture isn't blurry. Please double check all of the requirements. This is not just for us, but probably for all those college pre-screen videos that you have to do. For instance, in our video competition, we require our singers to introduce themselves and their piece and their composer, but we ask them not to include their age or year in school, because that's not a criteria we like our judges to know. So you want to make sure you're reading everything, all the rules all the way through, and making sure you're following all the regulations of the competition. And lastly, super important, make sure you watch the video all the way through after you have recorded it from start to finish. I cannot count the number of videos I've watched that have had extra talking at the beginning or the end, or someone finishes a piece and they're like, and you see the big sigh of relief at the end. I've even had a person start a song, make a mistake, shake out and restart the song again. She didn't watch it, otherwise she would have edited out the beginning part. So make sure you're watching that video all the way through. I did want to include a few just pictures. These are two people that entered our undergrad competition, and you can see they both have their pianist framed in the video shot. It also demonstrates that, you know, you don't always have to be on a concert stage to make a good video. This top picture, Jack, he's in a rehearsal studio of sorts. The bottom picture, Meg, she's on a recital hall stage. So either one works, especially for ours. Now moving on to preparing for the live competition. So one of the most important parts of being a singer, I think, is how you collaborate with your pianist. It's a very important relationship, and you'll have many of them throughout your singing careers. So as a teacher, I think it's really important to impart a few words of advice about working with a pianist while you're at an event like ours. So first of all, you want to make sure that the music that you're presenting to the pianist is totally clear. This is really important because we want to make the pianist's life as easy as possible. Okay, so we do expect all of our singers to have real scores in their possession. But for the competition, we ask that singers bring a 3-ring binder with clean and clear copies of all 3 pieces. What is kind of standard preparation for a 3-ring binder is that you print out each page single-sided, and then you tape them together to make them double-sided. This makes it thicker and easier for the pianist to turn the page. You want to make sure you use tape, no staples, no plastic sheets. If you use staples, you might cut your pianist's finger when they're trying to turn a page, and we don't want that to happen for sure. And if you have plastic sheets, sometimes the stage lights make a reflection and they might not be able to see the music. So single-sided, taped together, and then put into a 3-ring binder. All of your tempi and cuts should be clearly marked. And you always want to make sure that you can read the bottom baseline on all the pages. Sometimes when we use the copy machines, those might get cut off at the bottom. And then clearly put a divider between each of your pieces. So if you have a little tab that says, if your first piece, let's say, is Amarilli mia bella, you can put Amarilli on the tab. The pianist will know what it is. And then I would always put whatever you're starting with as the first piece in your binder. So then after you've prepared that wonderful binder of music, your singer is going to bring that to the competition. Now at all of our competitions, the singers must use our staff pianist. There's no rehearsal, but singers get a few minutes backstage to talk with the pianist. And this is where they can relay all of their tempo choices and cuts. So I would have your singer practice telling you their tempo. And this is more effective usually when they sing quietly a few bars, better than like snapping their fingers or trying to conduct the pianist. I would always remind them to be professional and efficient in that conversation, but it is something that should be practiced for them to be able to describe how they would like the piece to be played. And then after they talk with the pianist, they'll be walking on stage. And this is something that I would recommend you do with your whole studio. Have them pretend like they're walking on stage for each other and do introductions. A few things to remember with that is you want to encourage your singer to walk with confidence to the crook of the piano with their head up. Sometimes it's easy to just look at our feet as we're walking on stage, but it's nice to like look towards the back of the hall. Please let them know where the crook of the piano is and where to stand at a grand piano. So you're not too far forward that the pianist can't see you, and you're not too crunched into the corner either. Sometimes Bree and I remember to put an X on the floor at a competition, and sometimes we don't. So it's good when the singers actually know where that crook is. And once the singer gets there, smiling, having a welcoming face to the audience and the judges is something that's super important too. They should introduce their names slowly and clearly, especially if they have a name that's hard to understand. We like to hear it totally separate. So don't say, hello, my name is Lena McAllister. We want to make sure that it's slow and clear. And in our competitions, like I said, we only ask for the people to say their name, the song title, and the composer, and not anything about their age or graduation year. Then the singer should just take a moment to get into character. The pianist should be able to clearly see when you're ready to start by your posture rather than looking over and nodding your head. So that's something to practice at home as well. And then lastly, a quick note about applause and bowing. So in our competition, in the first round, we actually have no applause. And so please let your singers know that if there is no applause, there should be no bows, because it's a little awkward when someone bows and there's no applause. So in that first round, no one will be bowing. But however, in the afternoon session, we have a master class. In the final round, we do have applause. So it's important if you're walking out on stage, if the applause stops before you get to the crook of the piano, no bow. If the applause is still happening when you get to the crook of the piano, it's totally appropriate to do I would do a little bow or just a head nod to acknowledge the audience, and then you can get started. At the end of those performances of the masterclass in the final round, there will be applause. Definitely take a full bow and a moment to acknowledge your pianists. So in preparation for this webinar, I surveyed 20 adjudicators from our SVA network, some of whom have judged for us for the past 10 years or more. And one of my questions was, what should everyone wear? Which is sometimes a hard thing to figure out, I would say, especially in these days of our lives where there's lots to choose from. The overall consensus is that the singers on stage should be in a professional attire, not trendy. You do want to show your individual style, but you don't want to let it upstage you. One great quote from one of the adjudicators, they said, Dress as though you are at a job interview and you actually want the job. You will never please everyone with your look because it is subjective. Therefore, the key is that your attire, including accessories, makeup, hairstyle, should make you feel strong and confident, whatever that may be. And if something could be distracting, don't wear it. We also recommend nothing too short or too fancy. Remember, for short dresses, sometimes the stage is above the first row of the audience, which makes your dress look even shorter. And for our regional competitions, you definitely don't need long gowns or tuxes. We have those later on in the national competition. I would recommend practice wearing your shoes, especially for those female identifying singers. Make sure those shoes are not too high. You practice walking in them and they're not high. Sometimes when you wear heels too high, they throw off your balance, which affects your breathing when you're singing. And for all, do make sure your hair is out of your face. As judges, we want to see your full expression of your face and eyes. So if you have bangs, pin them back or hairspray them off to the side for the day. I also asked our judges, if you could give a singer one piece of advice when preparing a singer for a regional Schmidt vocal competition, what would you say? Out of those 20 judges, 3 people said that the teacher should start with teaching the correct notes and rhythms, and then really encourage the singers to go beyond just the basic musical things. So character, musicality, connection to the text. Then 17 of those judges, that's a big percentage there, said choose appropriate repertoire, which is a very important thing for young singers and for competitions in general. Then I asked, what examples of a great audition piece, what are examples of great audition piece for the high school Schmidt vocal competition? A couple of them gave specific songs, which I'm not going to name here because then I'll probably end up with about 25 singers singing the same song at the next Schmidt competition. What we look for on the judging panels is a mix of a lot of things. So we like contrast. Adjudicators need to see variety, variety of style, of language, of tempi. For instance, something more sustained and legato in your first piece, and then something in contrast that moves or that is more text driven would be great. We want to see storytelling, connection to the text. We want to know that you understand what you're saying. The judges want to hear any piece that shows off what you do best and where you feel like the piece helps you tell your story. Character, we want to see pieces with differing characters. We want to see what you can do acting wise. Keep languages in mind. We actually do not have a language requirement. That's on purpose to be more inclusive to beginning singers. If they want to do all English, that's okay. But if a singer is able, having a variety of language is a good thing. Italian is a really great starting foreign language. Some judges are a little bit more wary of German and French for younger singers. But if you have a singer with a good ear, that opens up a great list of competition selections in the German and French repertoire. Also think about the ensemble with the pianist. Is the piece difficult to put together without a rehearsal? If it's something tricky that isn't standard repertoire, then your singer might have more of a difficult time performing that on stage without a rehearsal. And lastly, keep in mind our time limits. For each round, singers have 7 minutes to present 2 pieces. Singers are cut off after 7 minutes. And even though we don't deduct points, if they go over that time, if you get cut off before the fabulous high note at the end of a piece, then the judges won't hear that and be able to maybe add a few points in for that fabulous high note. And most importantly, remember to look at each singer's individual level. I asked the judges, would you rather a high school singer present a more technically difficult piece that is not as polished, or a technically easier piece that is extremely well prepared? almost all said easier and polished, but there is one caveat. If you do have that unicorn of a high school student who does have a more advanced technical ability, and the judge thinks that they're playing it safe, then it might suit them to have a piece that they can show off a little bit more. And I'm going to put a second caveat in there that this is all subjective, as a lot of competitions are in the artistic world. Everyone has their own opinion. In our survey, most agreed that dramatic and lengthy arias for young singers should be avoided. If you have a specific question about a specific piece, whether you think it's appropriate, please do feel free to contact me, and I will give you my subjective opinion about it. Someone else might say something else, but I can give you an idea about what our adjudication panels would think of it. So many of our adjudicators are actually college professors. So the answers to the next question are really great for college auditions too. I asked, what traits do you look for in a high school singer? One of the first things they said was tone quality and ease of production. Just when they open their mouth, is it a beautiful sound? Is a way to say that. That's one of the categories they judge on, is beauty of sound in our competition. The second one is pitch and musical accuracy, also something that we have in our rubric of judging. Our judges like to see confidence. So this is something that we notice right away from walking on stage. It's sometimes uncanny how you can judge what a singer might sound like by just the walk on stage and how they introduce themselves. Our judges want to see and hear musicality and emotional connection to the text. And they want to see a demonstrable joy in singing. We want to see that you love being on stage and want to show something to us. And most importantly, they want to see singers who have something to say. And lastly, I asked them, is there anything else you'd like to pass along to the teachers of high school students? And of course, there was a lot of advice there. I narrowed it down to a few things. One judge said, really support and encourage your students to attend live music events in their area. Don't let classical singing only be the thing that they do in choir or for solo ensemble. Go see an orchestra concert, go to the opera, support the arts in general. Excuse me. Secondly, provide them opportunities to perform for each other. So this is something that helps your studio all around. If you have studio classes or recitals, just getting them up in front of people before they come to this competition will help their competition day be just a little bit easier that day they get on stage. And lastly, encourage your students to enjoy the process. Do everything you can to remind these young singers why they started singing and studying in the first place, so they never lose that pure love of music as they go through their singing careers with you. So that is all we have for you tonight. Thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A box. We have a few minutes left. Otherwise, if you have any questions after the fact, please go ahead and email me at linda@schmidtvocalarts.org or Bree@schmidtvocalarts.org. We're here to help and answer any questions. And once again, thank you. And thank you for all that you're doing to nurture the next generation of artists. Have a good night, everyone. Bye-bye.